You are standing in a museum. In front of you is a painting worth millions of dollars. You don't understand why. It's just shapes and color, but something in you still stops to look. That reaction is old, older than you think. Because the real answer to why humans make art has nothing to do with museums or money or talent. It goes back over 70,000 years to a cave, a piece of rock, and a mind that was doing something no other animal on Earth had ever done before. Let's go back there. The place is called Blombo's Cave, on the southern coast of what is now South Africa. Around 73,000 years ago, someone sat down with a small piece of ochre, a soft reddish stone, and scratched a pattern into its surface. Cross-hatched lines, deliberate, repeated. Archaeologist Christopher Hinchelwood, who led the excavation, found that piece and realized it changed everything scientists thought they knew about the human mind. This wasn't a tool. It didn't help anyone hunt or eat or survive the night. It didn't do anything. And that's exactly why it mattered so much. Because up until that point, the story of early humans was a story of survival. Sharpen the stone, start the fire, find the food. Every action had a purpose you could point to. But a scratched pattern on a rock breaks that rule completely. Someone stopped surviving for a moment and made something instead. Why would a brain built by evolution, shaped by hunger and threat and cold nights, spend its energy on a pattern that fed no one? Here's where it gets strange. Some researchers think the answer isn't that art appeared despite survival pressure. It's that art appeared because of it. Anthropologist Ellen DeSanyac spent decades studying this question, and she proposed something she called making special. Humans, she argued, have a deep drive to take ordinary objects, ordinary moments, ordinary sounds, and elevate them. Turn them into something marked, something set apart from daily life. A decorated tool wasn't just a tool anymore. A rhythm wasn't just noise anymore. And that act of making things special, she believed, pulled early human groups closer together. It built shared meaning, shared identity. A tribe that paints together, in some sense, survives together. Art, in this view, wasn't a luxury bolted onto survival. It was a survival strategy in disguise. Think about that for a second. The oldest paintings we've found aren't just decoration. They might be one of the reasons your species is still here at all. Now travel forward tens of thousands of years to a set of caves in northern Spain. La Pasiega, Maltreviso. Deep inside, on the cold stone walls, are hand stencils and red painted symbols. For a long time, scientists assumed only fully modern humans, people like you, could have made them. But in 2018, a team led by geochronologist Dirk Hoffman used uranium-thorium dating on the mineral crusts covering the paint. The results placed the art at over 64,000 years old. That's at least 20,000 years before modern humans are known to have reached that part of Europe. Which leaves only one explanation: Neanderthals made it. Sit with that. For a long time, the story you were told, maybe without anyone even saying it directly, was that Neanderthals were the dumb cousins. Brutish, simple, incapable of the abstract thought that painting requires. That story just doesn't hold up anymore. If a Neanderthal picked up a piece of ochre and pressed it against a cave wall, then somewhere in that mind was the same impulse sitting in yours right now. The urge to leave a mark. To say in the only language available, I was here, I saw this, this mattered. And it wasn't only paint. At sites across Europe, archaeologists have found Neanderthal-made eagle talons, worn smooth from being strung together, likely as jewelry. Shells with holes deliberately pierced through them, colored with pigment, found far from any coastline, meaning someone carried them, traded them, valued them enough to keep. None of these objects fed anyone. None of them kept anyone warm. They existed for a single reason. Someone wanted to wear something beautiful, and someone else agreed it was worth having. That urge didn't start with painting either. It started even earlier, in sound and rhythm. At a site called Hohl Fels in what is now Germany, archaeologists uncovered a flute carved from the wing bone of a vulture. Nicholas Kennard, the researcher who led the dig, dated it to around 40,000 years ago, right alongside the earliest known figurative sculpture, a lion-headed figure carved from mammoth ivory. Music and imagination showing up in the archaeological record together, not one after the other, at the same time. As if once the human mind crossed some invisible threshold, it didn't just learn to represent the world. It learned to represent worlds that didn't exist at all. A creature that was part lion and part human never walked the earth. Someone had to imagine it first. That's the real leap. Not the drawing itself, but what the drawing proves about the mind behind it. Think about what a flute actually requires. Someone had to notice that air moving through a hollow bone made a sound. Someone had to decide that sound was worth repeating. Then someone had to carve precise holes along the length of the bone, spaced just right so that different notes could be called up on command. That's not an accident. That's engineering, aimed entirely at an experience with no physical use. You cannot eat a melody. You cannot use a melody to escape a predator. And yet somewhere around a fire, 40,000 years ago, a group of humans sat and listened to one anyway, and it meant something to them. To draw an animal from memory, you need to hold an image in your head that isn't in front of you anymore. To carve a lion-headed man, you need to combine two separate memories into something new. Psychologists call this decoupled cognition, the ability to think about things that are absent, imagined, or impossible. Your ancestors developed that ability, and the moment they did, reality stopped being the only thing they could think about. Suddenly there were ancestor spirits, origin stories, gods with animal heads, symbols that stood for things too big to hold in your hands like death or belonging or the changing seasons. Art didn't just decorate the world your ancestors lived in. It let them build an entirely second world, made only of meaning, and live in both at once. You still do this every single day. You just don't notice it anymore. When you scroll past a photo and feel something, when a song gives you chills for no logical reason, when you cry at a movie about people who never existed, you are running the exact same software that carved a lion-headed man out of ivory 40,000 years ago. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between the real and the beautifully imagined. It reacts to both as if they matter. Is that a flaw in the system, or is it the whole point of the system? Some researchers think it's the second one. Cognitive scientists studying imagination point out that the same brain networks that let you plan for tomorrow, the ones that simulate a future that hasn't happened yet, are the ones that let you picture a creature that never existed at all. Planning and art may share the exact same machinery, which means the ability that let your ancestors imagine a winter they hadn't reached yet, so they could store food for it, is the very same ability that let them imagine a lion with a human body. You couldn't get one without the other. The species that learned to dream up the future first had to learn to dream at all. Consider the cave paintings at Chauvet in southern France, dated to roughly 36,000 years ago. Hundreds of animals, painted with a command of movement and shading that looks almost impossible for the era. Lions mid-stride, horses overlapping to suggest motion, an early, primitive form of animation if you want to call it that. Whoever painted those walls wasn't fumbling toward art for the first time. They were already skilled, already trained, already part of a tradition, passed down long before that painting was made. Which means the real origin of art isn't a single genius moment, one person suddenly inventing beauty out of nothing. It's a slow accumulation. Someone scratches a pattern into ochre at Blombos. Generations later, someone presses ochre-stained hands against a Spanish cave wall. Generations after that, someone else carves a flute, imagines a lion man, paints a herd of horses running across stone by firelight. Each act builds on the last. Each generation inherits the impulse and pushes it further. You are the current endpoint of that chain. Every painting you've ever paused in front of, every song stuck in your head, every doodle you scribbled in the margin of a notebook while your mind wandered somewhere else. None of it is separate from what happened in that cave 73,000 years ago. It's the same behavior, still running, just wearing modern clothes. Even the arguments people have about art today echo something ancient. Why does a blank canvas sell for a fortune? Why does one song top the charts while a technically better one is ignored? Underneath those debates is a question your ancestors were already wrestling with around a fire in a cave. What deserves to be marked as special? Whose imagination gets remembered? The tools have changed. Ochre became paint. Paint became pixels. But the underlying decision, the one about what to elevate above the ordinary, hasn't moved an inch in 70,000 years. And notice something else. Nobody had to teach you to react to art. No one sat you down and explained the rules before a song could give you chills, or before a photograph could make your chest tight. That reaction arrived pre-installed, which suggests it isn't a cultural add-on you picked up somewhere along the way. It's closer to something structural, wired in alongside hunger and fear and love, because the humans who felt it, who bonded over a shared song or a shared symbol, out-cooperated the ones who didn't. Making something special wasn't just self-expression. It was glue. It held small, scattered groups of humans together long enough to survive winters, predators, and each other. So think back to the museum, the painting that made no obvious sense. You stopped anyway. Something old in you recognized something older still, a mark left by a mind trying to say, without needing words, I was here. This mattered. Make something special. You are standing in a museum, and without knowing it, you're standing at the very end of humanity's longest-running conversation.